amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. All right, let's sing this out. Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King of glory, who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Sing out, worthy is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Sing it out. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Lift it up. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. All that you've done for me. Amen. Thanks for singing with us. Y'all can have a seat.
As we continue our worship this morning, we recognize that we are called and gathered here in this place, and we join in the name of our God, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. On your bulletin, you should see a word called peace, and we're going to reflect upon that today, but ultimately there's some things in our lives where maybe we don't have peace, or we're lacking that peace that we want. Part of that has to do with oftentimes maybe sins of others, but ultimately we look back at ourselves and say there's sins in our own lives, in our own hearts, where we need to confess and make that right with our God. So we spend a time at the beginning of the service doing just that. So I invite you to kneel, remain seated as we go to our God in a time of confession. Lord God, Heavenly Father, you know our hearts, you know the lack of peace that maybe exists in our lives, and you know the sin that causes it. You know the brokenness that we just go when we go our own way, when we do our own thing. Lord, the thoughts in our minds, the actions, the words that we say. Lord, we're filled with all sorts of different sin, maybe from just this past week or from a lifetime ago, Lord, things that we've been carrying. Lord, we just ask that today that we might be able to name those things and to give those things ultimately to you, because we can't carry them on our own. We need you, and you promise, that you've carried that to the cross. So hear us this morning as we confess those sins, those things that destroy our peace, and we leave it here at the foot of the cross and give it to your Son. Almighty God, in his mercy, has given his Son, Jesus Christ, to take that sin, to take that guilt, to take that shame, to take that thing that destroys our peace, and to be peace in place. To take those things, to take them upon the cross, and to shed his blood, and to cover those things, so that we know that we have freedom, we have forgiveness, we have grace. So know that because of Jesus, because of what he's done, those things that destroy our peace are replaced with the words that Jesus says, my peace I give to you, my peace I leave with you, because we are forgiven. Amen.
This song is one of my absolute favorites, and it's because it reminds me of the simple truth that I often forget, that God is able to do far more than I understand. And sometimes I think I can't, but he can. Where I couldn't, he could. So let's sing this out. God is able, he will never fail. He is Almighty God, greater than all we seek, greater than all we ask. He has done great things, lifted up, he defeated the grave, raised to life. Our God is able. In his name we overcome. For the Lord our God is able. Yeah. We sing, God is with us. He is on our side. Thanks for singing with us. Y'all can have a seat.
We do begin with breaking news that headlined North Korea just a short time ago, issuing its newest threat.
Tens of thousands of Houstonians suddenly displaced.
NBC Today Show anchor Matt Lauer has been fired.
22,000 country music fans packed in, enjoying the Route 91 Harvest Festival.
Ferocious and fast-moving wildfire that continues to burn out of control.
Millions of Americans looked up as darkness descended in the middle of the day.
About 6 years ago now, my wife and I, Melody, we had a new addition added to our family. And this was before we had kids. We had 2 cats, but about 6 years ago, we welcomed a brand new dog into our family. His name is Bandit. He's a black and white Shih Tzu. Brought a picture of him with me. And he's been a great part of our family ever since. Believe it or not, somebody actually found him running along the side of 410 here in San Antonio. And he exchanged hands a couple of times. He eventually wound up with us, and Bandit is awesome, especially now that we have kids, because the kids can pound on him and tug on his tail. And he has a great temperament. He doesn't bite. He doesn't snip, doesn't do anything like that. He is a terrific dog. One of the cool things about Bandit is that if you talk to Bandit, Bandit will actually talk back. I'm serious. If you bark at Bandit, he will bark back. If you howl at Bandit, he will howl back. And I know you don't believe me, so I brought a video just to prove it to you. Take a look up here. Bandit. Oh! Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's kind of fun, right? Talented little howling Shih Tzu right there. It's pretty amazing. Now here's the thing. I like to do that. I like to walk around the house howling and have Bandit howl back at me. But there is one person who doesn't quite see this the same way that I see this. She's my wife. I call this fun. You know what she calls this? Annoying. Because there's something about having a howling little dog walking around the house that is just kind of frustrating. Now, because I love my wife and because I respect my wife and I want to honor my wife, I do what any good, righteous, doting husband would do in a situation like this. I do not howl around Bandit when she is in the house. Instead, I've taught my kids to howl around Bandit when she is in the house. And so I got a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they're going, "Ow!" and the dog is howling back. And I'll confess, okay? When you have 2 little kids, your house can kind of turn into a zoo, and you always got things falling and things breaking and kids fighting. And to add a howling little dog on top of it, it's true, sometimes that can be a little bit annoying. It can be a little bit overwhelming, because sometimes when your house is going crazy, all you want to do is play the quiet game, right? All you want to do is just have a few moments of peace. You know, this morning we're wrapping up this series we've been in since the beginning of the year. It's called The Year in Review. And in this series, we're taking a look at some of the biggest stories from this past year, from 2017. And we are asking what we can learn for this new year, for 2018. And the philosophy behind this series has been kind of that of taking a test. When you take a big test at the end of a class, at the end of a quarter or a semester, one of the things that you will often do to get ready for the test is you will go back and you will do a review. You will review your old class notes, you will review your old lecture notes, you will review some old tests or some old papers. And when you do the review, it actually can help you a lot of times do better on the test because you are ready for the test. Now, I'm not a fortune teller, so I don't know what 2018 is going to bring, but this much I do know. 2018 is probably going to come with some tests. It's going to come with some tough times and some trials. And if we want to do well on those tests, if we want to pass those tests, it may just be helpful for us to do a review, to figure out what we've learned from this past year. And that's why we're doing this series. And so this weekend, as we kind of wrap up this series, we're going to be talking about what we learned in 2017 about peace. And I'll begin just by making a very honest admission. Our world kind of struggles in the peace department, doesn't it? 2017 was not exactly a banner year for peace. In fact, our world was full of a lack of peace. Our world was full of a lack of peace politically. Republicans fighting with Democrats, Democrats fighting with Republicans. That's carried over into 2018 as part of what the government shutdown was all about. Our world was full of a lack of peace financially. The financial markets, thank goodness, they're getting much better, but every once in a while you get a little hiccup in the financial markets. One of the things that I follow kind of closely are cyber currencies. These are basically cryptocurrencies. They don't have any real things that you can hold in your hand, but you can use them to pay for things. And one of the biggest cryptocurrencies out there is something called Bitcoin. And in December of 2017, Bitcoin, which started out worth less than $1 a piece, was worth almost $20,000 a piece. But then if you look at the graph, this year in January, it's dropped to about $11,000 a piece. It's almost been cut in half, and the Bitcoin boom became a Bitcoin bust. We have a lack of peace financially at places in our world. And then, of course, we also are full of a lack of peace internationally. All you got to do is look at all the stories of all the terrorist attacks that hit in 2017, and already this year, we've had some terrorist attacks in 2018. All you got to do is look at North Korea and Kim Jong-un and all of the saber rattling that he's been doing, and you know that our world is full of a lack of peace. You know, there's this line in the book of Job. Job was a guy in the Old Testament. He lost everything. He lost his family. He lost his house. He lost his assets. He even lost his health. He wound up being covered in sores. And after he loses everything, he cries out in Job 3, verse 26, and he says, I have no peace. I have no quietness. I have no rest. I have only turmoil. You ever feel like that? Where this world is full of so much conflict that you have no peace, and you have no quietness, and you have no rest, but you only have turmoil. We're going to be talking about Job's feeling in our message today. We're going to be talking about what it feels like to have a lack of peace. And to get at that, we're going to be taking a look at our text for today from Isaiah 26. Before we dive into the text, let me begin by setting a little bit of context here for you. Isaiah was a prophet who lived in the 8th century BC, and he was a prophet to the ancient nation of Israel. And Isaiah served the nation of Israel in his ministry during one of the most tumultuous times in the history of the nation of Israel. There were two kind of watershed events that took place in Isaiah's ministry. The first one hit in 722 BC. That is when the empire of Assyria swept into northern Israel and totally destroyed the northern half of Israel. They ransacked the place, they stole a bunch of stuff, and they even carried a lot of the people out from northern Israel, from their homes, into exile in the kingdom of Assyria. Then the second watershed moment that happened in Isaiah's ministry happened a few years later, in 701 BC, when the Assyrian Empire came back. But this time, instead of coming for northern Israel, they came for the southern half of Israel, and they surrounded the city of Jerusalem. They tried to lay siege to it, and they almost conquered it. Isaiah was a guy who knew about a lack of peace because he lived in a time that didn't really have a lot of peace. And that's what Isaiah is going to talk to us about in Isaiah 26. And so our text for today, Isaiah 26, beginning at verse 7, Isaiah says this, "The path of the righteous is level. You, O God, clear a straight path for the righteous. Yes, Lord, we wait for you in the path of your judgments." Isaiah opens by saying this: in the midst of a world that is full of a lack of peace, there is still righteousness to be found. In fact, there are still righteous people to be found, and you can see these righteous people because they're on a particular path. Isaiah says the path that they are on is level. The path that they are on is straight. The path of the righteous is level, Isaiah says. You, O God, clear a straight path for the righteous. Now, this picture of a straight path and a level path, this is actually kind of a common picture in the Bible. When John the Baptist is foretelling the coming of Jesus, one of the things he says in Mark 1 verse 3 is this: "Prepare the way for the Lord, make his paths straight." This is the way that righteousness walks. It walks on a path that is straight. It walks on a road that is level. But here's the other thing you need to know about straight paths and level paths. Straight paths aren't always easy paths. Level paths aren't always peaceful paths. You see this just in the life of Jesus. John may have been there to clear the way for Jesus, to prepare a straight path for him, but that straight path for Jesus was a path that led straight to suffering and death on a cross. Sometimes you can walk in a way that is righteous and yet receive things that are anything but peaceful. And that's what Isaiah talks about as he continues. Isaiah 26 verse 10, he says, if the wicked man is shown favor, he doesn't learn righteousness. Even if he's in a righteous land, he acts unjustly, and he does not see the majesty of the Lord. Isaiah says you can put a wicked person in a righteous country. You can put a wicked person face to face with a righteous person, but it doesn't always mean that he's going to respond to the righteous person with righteousness. Sometimes he will respond to the righteous person with wickedness. In fact, a little bit of Hebrew here for you, the Old Testament written in the Hebrew language, and when Isaiah says, if a wicked man is shown favor, the Hebrew word for favor there is the word chesed. And it's the word chesed. And the word chesed is a word that means grace. And so the idea is this: sometimes you can be very gracious to people who are sinful, to people who do not walk in the way of righteousness. And yet, even if you're gracious to them, they're not going to respond graciously. It's kind of like you have a new coworker at the office and you try to show them a little bit of grace. You show them the ropes, you tell them the ins and the outs of the office, you tell them a couple of secrets about the office culture. And what do? They use all those secrets that they learned from you to step all over you and get a promotion that you yourself really kind of wanted. They responded to your grace with their own selfishness. Or let's say you make a new friend, and really the reason that you've made this friend is because you've seen this person who's in deep trouble, and they look like they could use a little bit of help and guidance. And so you share with them a little bit of help and guidance. Maybe you even tell them a few secrets from your own life about some struggles that you went through to try to help them in the midst of their struggles, but rather than holding your secrets in confidence, they spread them around to everybody they know. You try to show them grace, and they respond to your grace with their own betrayal. This is the way that life often works. You can do the right thing and receive the wrong thing in return. You can do the gracious thing and receive the wicked thing as payment for the good thing you've done. Jesus says this, Matthew 5 verse 9. He says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God. But what I really want you to notice is the verse that comes right after this, Matthew 5, verse 10. Jesus continues by saying, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Jesus says in Matthew 5, verse 9, peacemakers are righteous people. They show a lot of chesed. They act in gracious ways. They act in good ways. But a lot of times, you know what happens to people who are peacemakers? In Matthew 5, verse 9, they turn into people who are persecuted. In Matthew 5, verse 10. These two things often go together. You try to act with righteousness and you receive wickedness. You try to act as a peacemaker and you receive nothing but persecution. Got to be honest with you guys, in one way, this is the world in which we live. And so here's the big question. If this is the world in which we live, how do we get peace out of a world like this? How do we experience peace in a world that is full of a lack of peace? How do we get peace in a world that sometimes feels like it has nothing but conflict? What I want to do for the time that we have remaining today is I just want to give you two ways, according to Isaiah 26, that we can experience peace in a world that often takes peace and exchanges it for persecution, that often takes righteousness and exchanges it for wickedness. Isaiah says if we want to experience peace in a world that is full of conflict, there are two things we can do. And the first thing we can do is this: we can wait. We can wait. Back to Isaiah 26, verse 8. Isaiah says, yes, Lord, we wait for you in the path of your judgments. Isaiah says if you're walking the way of righteousness, that straight path, that level path, one of the best things that you can do is you can just wait on that path. And I love this picture. Here's the reason I like it so much. One of the big blessings that I have is that I get to live pretty close to where I work. I just live 2 miles south down Huebner. And this is fantastic because when I'm coming to work in the morning, I'm going north on Huebner when everybody else is going south on Huebner. And when I go home at night, I'm going south on Huebner when everybody else is going north on Huebner. It only takes me a couple of minutes to get to and from work. But every once in a while, at the end of the day, I don't get to go straight home. I got to go and run an errand, go somewhere, which means that I got to get onto a major thoroughfare like 1604 or 281 or I-10 right at 5 or 5:30, right at the height of rush hour traffic. And I got to tell you, it is awful. I mean, I don't believe in purgatory, but I truly believe that 1604 at 5:30 is what purgatory is probably like. I mean, you exit on to 1604, and immediately, what do you see? You see a sea of red, and nobody's going anywhere. The traffic is totally and completely stopped, and when I'm there on 1604, all of a sudden my blood pressure begins to rise, and I begin to grip the steering wheel just a little bit tighter, and there is great weeping and gnashing of teeth in my truck. It drives me nuts, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is a highway. You know what a highway is? It is a path on which you ought to be able to go at a high rate of speed, but I'm just sitting there. I'm just waiting there. And it drives me nuts. Now, Isaiah says, there's a path that is actually good if you wait on it. It is the path of the righteous judgments of God. Yes, Lord, Isaiah says in Isaiah 26, verse 8, we wait for you in the path of your judgments. We're at a standstill and we don't mind at all. Isaiah is stuck in a traffic jam, and he actually seems to like it. Now the question is, why? Well, Isaiah knows something. He knows that if you want to have peace, one of the best things you can do is learn how to wait. I mean, think about this just real practically with me for a second. Some of the times when we destroy peace in our lives are also the times when we are impatient the most. Think back to something that you said that you wish to this day that you could take back. What would have happened if you would have just taken a moment to wait? To collect your thoughts rather than to spray your thoughts and anger all over the person right there in front of you. You probably would have walked away from that conversation with just a little more peace. Or how about that decision that you made maybe years ago that to this day you still feel a twinge of guilt over? You still have some regret over whatever it is that you decided. What would have happened if you would have just taken a moment to wait, to maybe sleep on it, to get some counsel from wise people who may have given you a different path to walk, a different way to go? What would have happened if you would have gotten some new information because you were just a little bit more patient and you would have made a different decision? You may have just walked away from that decision with a little more peace. If you want peace in your life, in a fast-paced world, one of the best things you can do is just slow down. Just take the time to wait. The Apostle Paul puts it like this in Philippians 4, verses 6 and 7. He says, don't be anxious about anything. You don't got to be in a hurry, always anxious to get to the next thing all the time. But in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And then notice what results. Paul says, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Paul says, when you are not anxious, when you slow down, when you are willing to wait, you can experience peace. When was the last time you took the time to wait? In a world that is full of conflict, waiting can be a key to peace. That's the first way we can experience peace in a world that is full of conflict. Second way that we can experience peace in a world that is full of conflict, we can not only wait, we can also see. We can actually see something that the rest of the world does not always get to see. Isaiah puts it like this, Isaiah 26, verse 11, Lord, your hand is lifted up to take action. but the world does not see it. Here's Isaiah, and he's living in a world that is full of conflict, in a world that is full of a lack of peace. His nation has been attacked by the Assyrians not once, but twice. It has almost fallen to the Assyrians. Isaiah knows a thing or two about conflict, and yet, even though Isaiah sees conflict all around him, you know what he also sees? He also sees the hand of the Lord above him. And he sees that the hand of the Lord is lifted and ready to take action. He sees that the hand of the Lord is lifted and ready to guide his nation. He sees that the hand of the Lord is lifted and ready to take care of him. You know, I don't know how many people I've talked to over the years who are really scared of the state of our world. They think we're just one election away from everything falling apart, or one bad political decision away from losing the republic, or one international incident away from everything falling apart. Pastor Wagner told me this before the 8 o'clock service. For the first time ever in history, they keep a doomsday clock. It is now at 2 minutes before midnight, the closest it's ever been to midnight. We are right on the brink of total annihilation. Isn't that a good feeling? That's the way that some people kind of walk through their lives. They're worried. They're always on the brink. This world is always on the brink of total annihilation. If you've ever struggled with that, if you've ever lost sleep over that, if you've ever experienced a lack of peace because of that, can I just invite you to see? Can I invite you to see that the hand of the Lord is lifted to be there for you and to protect you and to love you just like it was there for Isaiah? To protect him and to love him. God's hand is a very good hand, and God is reaching out his hand to you. One of the games that we play in our house, besides the quiet game, which I talked about to the kids in the children's message, is a simple card game. It's called Uno. Anybody ever play Uno before? And it's fun because a lot of people can play it. Old people can play it. Young people can play it. Even our little 4-year-old daughter, Hope, she can play it. And Uno is great for her, except when she starts to get too many cards in her hand. Because Uno is one of those games where sometimes you wind up drawing a lot of cards, and it's funny to watch her because she'll have her cards in her hand just fine for a second, but then the more cards that she gets in her hand begins to tip like this and this and this until all of a sudden mommy and daddy are looking at all of her cards like this. And we got to remind her, sweetie, don't show us your hand. Pull your cards up. You're the only one who's supposed to be able to see your hand. Here's the good news about God. Our God loves to show us his hand. He really does want us to see what is in his hand. In fact, in the very next verse, Isaiah tells us what is in the hand of our God. Isaiah 26, verse 12, Lord, you will establish peace for us. For you also have done all of our work for us. Isaiah says this is what is in the hand of God. In the hand of God, there is peace. And God will establish that peace for us. God will do all the work that is involved in making peace for us. And that's a great promise because, quite frankly, on our own and by ourselves, we're not very good at establishing peace. We're not very good at making peace. I was reading an article last weekend on the United Nations, founded in 1945. And outside the United Nations, there's a very famous sculpture. You may have seen it before. This is a guy who is beating a sword into a plowshare. And this is actually a picture straight out of the Bible. It's actually a picture straight out of the book of Isaiah, Isaiah 2, verse 4. Outside the United Nations, there's also a big wall, and it has the inscription with Isaiah 2, verse 4 that says, they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. This is kind of the express purpose and the express intent of the United Nations. They want to work for world peace. They want to seek to establish peace. How's that working out? I mean, the efforts are noble. But since 1945, how many wars have we had? How many conflicts have we had? How many terrorist attacks have we had? How many international incidents have we had? The UN works so hard to establish peace, and yet there seems to be no peace. But it's not just the UN who has trouble with peace. It's not just the UN with their big, grand dream of world peace. Even you and me, it can be hard to establish even the smallest bit of peace in our own personal lives. Have you ever started off a new year where you think to yourself, I'm going to make a resolution, and my resolution is this: I'm going to be a person this year who experiences more peace. I'm not going to be so stressed out. I'm not going to be so uptight. I'm going to get more margin in my life. I'm going to go to work a little bit later. I'm going to come home a little bit sooner. I'm not going to sweat the small stuff. This year, I'm going to get my work-life balance in order, and I'm going to have peace. That's a great resolution to make, and it works on Monday. By the time you get to Tuesday, the whole thing is falling apart, right? Because something is blown up at work, or you got a crisis at home, you got to take one of the kids to the doctor, and all of a sudden that peace that you thought you could get, that work-life balance that you thought you could experience, that somberness that you thought you could enjoy, it's just blown to smithereens. Because on our own and by ourselves, we're not very good at establishing peace. That's why we need someone to establish it for us. That's why Isaiah can say in Isaiah 26 verse 12, Lord, you are the one who establishes peace for us. You are the one who has done all the work of peace for us. It's really this simple. If you want peace, you have to see the work of the Lord. Here's kind of the best way that I know how to explain this. I still remember when I brought my kids home from the hospital. They were just little tiny babies. We adopted both of our kids, so we had to wait for 48 hours before we could bring them home. The birth mom would sign off on the papers, and so we brought Hope home, and then a few years later, we brought Hayden home. And if you've ever brought a little tiny baby home from the hospital, you know it's a very interesting emotional experience. Because you got a couple of simultaneous emotions going on in your heart. On the one hand, you're feeling great ecstasy and joy. There's this little life that you can fit right there in the palm of your hand. On the other hand, you're feeling complete and utter terror because you realize that you have no idea what you're doing. But it's funny, babies are pretty good at training their parents, aren't they? All right, you take the baby home, and what's the first thing the baby does? Well, the baby looks like it's at total peace. Just drifts off to sleep, and you lay the baby down in your bassinet or in the crib or whatever, and everything's very peaceful for about 2 hours. Until the baby wakes up, and the baby cries out, and mom and dad come running for the baby, and they pick up the baby, and they change the baby, and they feed the baby, and they rock the baby, and they sing to the baby, and all of a sudden the baby starts getting those heavy eyes, and it kind of drifts back to sleep, and it's right there at perfect peace, and you lay the baby down, back in the bassinet, back in the crib, and everything's great for another 2 hours. Till the baby wakes up again, the baby cries out, mom and dad come running for the baby, you pick up the baby, you change the baby, you feed the baby, you rock the baby, you sing to the baby, and the baby drifts back off to sleep, and there they are at perfect peace. And this cycle goes on and on and on and on, sometimes for months and months and months and months. Day and night, it doesn't matter. No matter where you're located, it doesn't matter. That's one of the amazing things about babies, right? They can sleep wherever and whenever. When you're in the car, they can fall asleep. When you're at a party, they can fall asleep. When you're sitting right here at church, they can fall asleep. It doesn't matter. That's why a lot of times we'll talk about how we wish we could sleep like a what? We could sleep like a baby, because at least when they're asleep, they look so much like they have what we all want. They look so much like they have peace. Question: how does a baby get that kind of peace? Well, here's the thing. If their mommy and daddy are good parents, the baby learns something real quickly about their mommy and daddy. The baby learns that all they need to do is cry out. And somebody will be there for them just like that. To hold them, to rock them, to sing to them. Because they love them. Let me let you in on a little secret. When we struggle with a lack of peace, when we are hurting, when we are conflicted, when we are busy, when we are burdened, when we are overwrought and overwhelmed and stressed out and maxed out, we too can have peace. All we have to do is cry out. And someone will be there for us just like that. Someone will be there for us to care for us, to guide us, to be with us, because he loves us. He loves us so much, in fact, that he even gave his life for us so that we could have peace not only in this life, but also in the next. Guys, the truth of peace is this. Peace is not given to you because you just have the right circumstances. Because the circumstances of life constantly change. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not so great. Sometimes they're joy-filled, sometimes they're terrible. Sometimes they're very easygoing, sometimes they are very stressed out. Sometimes they feel wonderful. Sometimes you don't know if you're going to be able to make it through. Peace doesn't come because any of those circumstances come. You don't lose peace because you have to struggle through any of those circumstances. Rather, you have peace not because of your circumstances, but because you have a Savior. And he will be there for you when you cry out just like that. And in a world like ours that has so much conflict, he is the kind of peace that we need. Let's stand and pray. Heavenly Father, thank you that your peace is not based on our circumstances. Your peace is given to us by a Savior, your Son, Jesus Christ. And so, Heavenly Father, no matter what we face, be it today or tomorrow, no matter how stressed out, maxed out, overwrought, or overwhelmed we may become, may our peace be found in your Son. It's in his name that we pray. Amen. Now as you leave this place, know that you go with the God who gives you peace, and because he does, you're blessed. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance on you, and may he give you his peace. And may you take that peace, and in a conflicted world, may you use it to shine like stars in the universe as you hold out God's precious word of life. Amen.